Hello, everybody. Welcome back to PAX Online. Not that you ever went away because it's happening in your house, as everything is happening right now. It's a delight to be with you from all parts of the world and all times of the day. Good morning from Australia. My name is Mark Morrison. My pronouns are he and him. And I am a writer for Call of Cthulhu, and I also make fake money with campaign coins. And I've got some fabulous people here, and we're going to talk about horrible things. So lovely people saying terrible things. We're going to talk about monsters. The monsters are among us. Let's meet our fantastic panel. Take it away, someone.
I'm someone.
Yay!
Hi, I'm Becca Scott. I have a channel called Good Time Society. I also have done all kinds of tutorials for different tabletop games all over the internet, but recently have fallen madly in love with all things Chaosium and Call of Cthulhu, and so I am a beginning keeper on my own channel there over on Good Time Society, in addition to having run a bunch of games over at Geek and Sundry, my second home for many years, and I am so honored to be here. Good afternoon from Los Angeles.
Yay. And just before we move on, Becca, we're going to talk about monsters. Let's start. What's a favorite monster from a movie or a show?
Okay, this is very difficult for me to choose. I have a lot of favorites. I think, Brundlefly is one of Cronenberg's masterpieces, but that's not the one I'm going to pick. I really like Slender Man, I guess, just from the video game, and absolutely horrifying. Never look it in the eye or else it'll come for you, and you never know where it will be. But no, the one monster that I'm gonna have to pick is the Weeping Angels from Doctor Who, the episode Blink. In the reboot, they are statues that come to life and move when you're blinking. Nothing more terrifying than what you have no control over.
That is, you've technically cheated, but that is all fantastic.
I know.
Let's meet someone else. It's a cage match. Whoever speaks first goes.
Hi, so my name is Amanda Hammond, and I am the editorial director over at Kobold Press. It is a job that I am fairly new in post. In fact, I am just since July the editorial director of Kobold Press, which means that I am handling all of the scheduling for all of the various print products that we are doing, as far as Kickstarters and softcovers and PDFs and the Warlock layers and the Warlock zine for our patrons, and all kinds of disparate publications that we've got. I am also very recently the managing developer of Starfinder over at Paizo Inc. and was a co-creator of that game, and have been a freelance writer, designer, adventure writer, editor, developer for about a decade in various tabletop RPGs and systems. So I have been around, and I've recently dipped my toes into GMing streams on Twitch for actual live plays. And I had a Starfinder stream for a while, and there is an unannounced plan for the future of Kobold Press that I will just drop as a spoiler here very shortly.
You didn't hear it here first.
That's right.
Give us a monster from a movie or
wow.
show.
So I've been very in recent years into bug people and fly people and just all kinds of just gross, disgusting, human-sized insectoids. I'm gonna have to pick the Fly from The Fly because it's horrifying, and I feel like it's a very foundational horror monster that has been inspiration for many tabletop adventure lines and stories and things like that. So that's what I'm going to pick.
I shouldn't cheat. This is why I shouldn't cheat. Stealing from other participants.
Oh, I love it. All right. And waiting there in the dark, in the looks like the Miskatonic University. Who we got in the corner, sir? And please step forward, our final panelist, looking in the corner. Speak.
Hello, Mark. I'm Mike Mason, and I work at Chaosium, where I'm the creative director for the Call of Cthulhu tabletop role-playing game. And I've been running Call of Cthulhu, as well as many other role-playing games for, probably over 40 years, to be honest. And Cthulhu, not quite 40 years, but getting on for that. and I spend most of my time as lead writer for the Call of Cthulhu line, commissioning editor, commissioning art, and spending, well, all of my time either writing or editing Call of Cthulhu books, which for some people might think that's a dream job. And I guess it really is. So I can't complain. So I deal with monsters pretty much every day of the week, I guess, in some shape or size.
That's a very mean thing to say about your co-workers. But Mike, a monster fan from way back, hit us with your choice, assuming Becca hasn't already stolen it.
No, I hadn't put Cronenberg's The Fly Down, although I'm a big Cronenberg fan. Like everyone else, there's a million things. I've been thinking about it all day. I could have picked The Creature from the Bat Lagoon because something about that monster has always, been there in my head. I could pick Alien, from the Alien films, because it's kind of a perfect monster in it does everything you want it to do. But I'm going to have to go with my favorite film monster of all time, which is the one and only Jaws, because it's a true monster. And the thing that makes it really scary is it's kind of real. And just like everyone else, especially when the film just came out, then the next time you went to the seaside and swam out, your
terrifying, and that is fantastic. I love that all the monsters are different and that they apply to, they work in a different way, and they're really different choices. With Slender Man that acts according to its own rules, the Weeping Angels, which you can't stop, the Fly as this organic kind of atrocity, and of course Jaws, which is, we're Australian. This is a genuine concern. Don't traumatize me like this early in the morning, Mike. So the reason why we're talking about monsters is because when we run games, they're often full of monsters for some reason, and I'm not just talking about your players. But we can, as game masters, we can get a little bit lazy. Players can get a little bit too meta, and we can almost become accustomed to monsters. And once we get used to the idea of monsters, they begin to lose their power. So to make games exciting, we want to have fantastic monster descriptions, because the reason why I asked about movies is that's where the special effects and the audio and the acting and the performance and the motion capture really comes in. And we want to bring that to the table, not just like slack like me on a Monday night. Yeah, whatever, it's a kobold. Oh, sorry, no offense, Amanda. So let's talk about ways to present monsters in a fresh way. And here's some advice from the Malleus Monstrorum, which was edited by Mike. It's a huge book of Chaosium called the Cthulhu Monsters.
He's everywhere.
At least half of it written by me as well, Mark.
Well then, I'm now going to read a quote from you to you, which is weird, but here we go. It's good advice.
Remember, because you write so much.
Yeah, that's right. Each time you present a monster, present it afresh. Make the description intense and visceral. A deep one is never just a deep one. It's a creature from the depths of the sea and as old as time itself. A creature whose very presence hits you deep in the gut, repelling humanity in a profound manner, causing revulsion and nausea. So present it afresh. What I love is, as I started to say that, outside my dog started barking, the approved Wilbur Whateley fashion. So you mentioned monsters, dogs bark, it's all going off. Thanks for that advice, Mike. I'll just keep talking. You've already written the book, you don't need to say anything else. But let's dig in. You've said let's have fresh monsters, so let's prove it. Why monsters? Why are monsters? I think, Amanda, you touched on that a little bit, talking about foundational monsters. Yeah. Let's just dive in for a second as what monsters do, what they mean, what are we getting at? Because I think it's important to understand the psychology to freak people out. So, talk about foundational monsters and what you were going for there.
Absolutely. So I really believe that when they're done correctly and when they are done well, that monsters are truly the reflections of our own fears. They are fears made manifest. The reason that the monster with a million eyes around its head and, you know, with a big lashing tongue attack and a massive jaws and gnashing teeth, the reason that that's scary as well, because it's a scary visual, but it also really preys on, for example, like body horror. It preys on that visceral fear that many people have of trauma to their eyes, or you know, like big teeth ripping through them, and it's really a way of getting into the player's head, the characters' heads, right, and understanding what it is that they fear and ways that that can be reflected back in, yes, a surface level horrifying visage of a nasty, terrifying creature, but things that are really getting into that, the players and the character psychology, right? What is it that they, maybe from their background, that they fear the most, or what is it that really just kind of freaks them out, and kind of playing on that and having the monsters reflect that is, I think, one of the most effective ways that we can use monsters, specifically in a horror setting, for a horror experience.
If I may jump in there, one of the subsets of fear is that fear of what represents something within us. And I think your example of Brundlefly is really a great example of this, because it represents that monster in us. Like, we could turn into this grotesque monstrosity, and that's its own, you know, one of the many fears that we as humans have, of all the things that go bump in the night, those things that we could turn into, especially, or like, yeah.
Absolutely. You know, we mentioned Cronenberg at the beginning of this panel, and I think he really dives into that fear of our bodies betraying us, things happening to our physicalities, us losing control of our physical forms, and that being the real terror, not the actual creature that's on the screen, which again is gross and weird and terrifying and covered in mucus and, you know, disgusting wings and, you know, nasty insectile eyes. That's all disgusting, but what's really the psychological fear is what you just said, the fact that people they don't understand how this happened, and if they don't understand how the monster happened, then it could happen to them, and that makes it on another level, I think.
That is fantastic, Mike. From your recent deep dive to monsters, I think that's a bunch of things we fear, things we might become. Anything you want to add to that before we cut loose?
I would say, yeah. I mean, I think there is the fear of physical change, you know, which is an emulation of everyone's fear of growing old and dying, and it's kind of like a rapid acceleration of that in terms of you mutating or becoming something other. And obviously, when you say other, then that latches onto the fear of the unknown, the fear of, you know, the not knowing what is beyond, not only physically but in terms of the passage of time and so forth. It for me stems into this fear of loss of control. It's the fear that not only is the physical kind of loss of control, that, you know, your body effectively starts to work against your intent and beliefs, but your mind as well, and so that kind of emulates very real fears that we have as humans in terms of, you know, who we are, who we define ourselves as being. That loss of being is an inherent fear that we all have, and monsters are often an emulation or a metaphor for that, you know, for the many fears that we all carry around, you know, whatever degree they are. They are a manifestation of of ourselves, and, you know, we see that in, you know, detective films and TV series where, you know, the monster is the murderer or the villain or the serial killer, and then it, you know, particularly in games and in more kind of, you know, fantastic films, you know, where the monster is, you know, is the alien or is the thing within us that comes out, or the thing that came out of the swamp, you know, whatever it may be. And yeah, I think that a lot, you know, it's very much, you know, just sticking a monster there isn't very scary. It's what the monster represents, I think, is what we're talking about.
I absolutely love this. That's so many great perspectives, everyone. And it's, as creators and as storytellers, I mean, stories have a purpose. They help us make sense of the world by fictionalizing it. And monsters have a purpose that we might not even understand. want to stab, like just have a dramatic game. But understanding this really gives your monsters some power, but not too much power, people. Amanda, the excellent section on consent in horror adventures from Paizo. It's a fantastic essay. Similar in Call of Cthulhu, Mike. Absolutely be aware what the character is afraid of. The librarian is afraid of flying books. But if the player is afraid of something, don't go there. Like we're here to have an enjoyable time and not actually traumatize our friends. Unless you play with me, I'm horrible. Don't do that. But do just enjoy the expression of kind of, good dramatic fun.
To jump in there, Mark.
Yeah, please.
Just to say that, yeah, I mean, to echo what you've just said, we're talking about games. It's a game, and games are, in theory, are meant to be in some level of fun, on a scale of fun somewhere. And so it's a safe environment to explore these kind of, situations, monsters. And it may be as simple as, we're fighting monsters because it's good fun to have a fight with some monsters in the game, to the monsters are scary and challenging our perceptions about the world and ourselves, anything on that spectrum, I guess.
Can I just say, I'm grateful to be digging deeper into this world at a time when, Amanda, I want to read your article when this is such a thing. I mean, the last game that I ran, I definitely had that conversation with my players, which please let me know. Of course, these are the things that I'm going to stay away from just because they're not places I want to go. And then please let me know if there are any more for you that are really, really triggering. I'm glad that these conversations are not, that they're normal now, and that we're more inclusive in a lot of different ways, including you so wonderfully, Mark, listed your pronouns at the top, which I should say she, her, but for me, but like all these things are subtle, easy adjustments that make people so much more comfortable and let so many more people in, and I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. I talk about this at length in most of the horror panels that I'm on and run, and I think it's appropriate here to just suggest having a session 0 in which you sit down and discuss with your players, where are lines, where are veils, and that is the name of a system that can be used for safety measures. There's a bunch of different things out there that can be used, but basically just setting those boundaries in that social contract and, just making sure that players know that you don't want to accidentally harm someone. And if there's something that they aren't comfortable with, they should tell you. And if something comes up that they're not comfortable with and they didn't realize, they should also talk to you. And being vigilant as a game master, doing all of that prep work at the beginning will help you avoid some very uncomfortable, unpleasant situations. So, 100% having that conversation is important. I agree.
Can I ask
it is really unlikely. Oh, sorry. Becca,
go. Just wanted to ask Amanda, do you also do like this isn't something that I've done a bunch, but like a cool down session afterwards to make check-in? Is that
it depends on what happens. I run a lot of horror games and write a lot of horror games, and it's very situational and it's very subjective. But when something happens and somebody clearly has a reaction, I totally will just kind of hang back and maybe we'll just chat, as a whole group, or maybe I'll go to the person, if it's one person who has clearly, had a reaction and just sort of talk to them about it. I do think that that's kind of important, just kind of, get yourself out of the game mentally, calm down, cool down, see how it goes, and, just kind of read the room, really. So that's,
or the Zoom meeting, as the case may be.
Yeah. Well, these days, right?
I think it is unlikely that anybody has a phobia of a giant owl that is a bear and yet an owl. But some people are scared of spiders, so maybe lay off the arachnids for that person. But it's game time. So you're getting ready for a game. And you can all imagine it because you've done such a thing. You've chosen a monster. Okay, either it's in the scenario or you're doing your own thing and you think, okay, I'm going to use that one. So to help other game masters, what kind of prep do you start to do before you get to the table, having been given a monster or chosen it? So what kinds of things are you doing on the way in?
Well, I mean, I'll jump in and answer that. I'm running a largely, I would say about 90% homebrew game right now, in which I'm doing that pretty much every week. And aside from random encounters, right, which are just things that you roll percentile and the players encounter them and they fight something out of a bestiary, right? A lot of times when I'm doing my session prep, I'm expecting, we usually play for about 4 hours in this game. I'm expecting 2 or 3 combats, maybe, and so a lot of times I kind of over prepare, so I'll have something ready for next time. But I try to pick very narrative specific monsters that have got to do with what's happening in the campaign. It is largely kind of a sandbox campaign, so in this instance, where I think the players are going to go and what makes sense for that area. So I'll use an example from last week, which was that I knew the players were going to go to an area where they were going to find an old abandoned temple from a Cyclops civilization from thousands and thousands of years ago. And this particular game has got pirate cultists of specific archdevils in the game, and so they are trying to track down who's involved in this, and I knew that they were going to go to this temple. They were being led to this temple to figure out a thing. And you know, that was part of the backdrop of the campaign, that the Cyclops Empire has been there, and one of the characters is actually like specifically studying that empire, so that's kind of how I pulled him into the game. But what I did was I was looking for, you know, what kind of encounters. I knew there's going to be something that they have to figure out and face at the temple, and I pulled basically a modified Cyclops stat block, but I realized, like, oh, if it's from this ancient civilization, it's not just going to be a random Cyclops who's wandering around at this temple. It's much more compelling to have this be somebody from that civilization who the cultists have kind of raised as an undead guardian of the temple. And so I picked out, I put an undead template on the Cyclops thing, and I described him in a this is a very kind of like psychic sort of extraplanar campaign. So one of the characters ended up like object reading on this old gravestone that they found, and they got the scene of this ancient Cyclopean king who was being buried, and how he was wrapped in these precious shrouds, and he had strings of precious gems all around him, and he had a crown, and he had a torque necklace, and described that in excruciating detail. And the character was like, oh, then this really important thing happens. And then they travel up to the temple, and the guy's there, and it's this mummified Cyclops. So I did a lot of prep work putting the stats together to make sure that it was an appropriate threat for the group's level, but also that background narrative. What does he look like? What is he able to do? What happens to him when they attack him? And there was a narrative driven scene of like, oh, they figured out that he was bound to the temple, and so they actually ended up freeing him and not fighting and killing him. But that was a choice that I wanted to put in front of the characters. So that's a very convoluted answer to your question, but
it was a wonderful answer. I want to play in your games.
The simple answer is like putting a lot of thought into the background of the creature, where it came from, what the story is, maybe why it's relevant to the characters, if it is at all, and what is going to be memorable about that, rather than just pulling a stat block from a random encounter, having it be something that's like a bookmark in the campaign, is my advice.
That's a fantastic, really holistic approach. And if you know the monster, you can describe it. I love that. Just before we get on to the description, Mike, anything else you think is helpful when prepping to bring a monster out? I mean, that was a superb example.
I mean, yeah, I mean, Amanda covered, that very well. And I think, obviously there are different game styles with different games. And obviously, to point out the obvious, in Call of Cthulhu, there is no wandering monster tables. So you don't have that kind of random element. And the reason for that, and as Amanda pointed out in terms of how the kind of monster gets crafted in the games, as described, it's about understanding what is the motivation of the monster. Why is the monster there? What is it meant to do in terms of the game, in terms of the scenario, and in terms of the scene drama? Because particularly obviously with Call of Cthulhu monsters, they're often, if not as intelligent as the player characters, they're often more intelligent. So they're not there to stand around and be hit by a bunch of investigators wielding cricket bats and .45 autos. Because if they start that, the monster's going to go, well, no, I don't need to stand here. Goodbye, and leave.
Sure.
Yeah, I love
Sayonara.
that.
No.
So
May
that's
I just
yeah,
quickly?
please, of course.
I'll make it short because I know we have a game to play. But I have always approached it a little differently because every time that I've run a game, it's been for a stream. So I'm considering it both a game for my players as well as a show for the audience. And so in that sense, I want to make sure that it's structured in such a way that it has a beginning, middle, and end, and that there are hints of what they are to face in the in scene. Throughout, as Amanda brilliantly did with laying the groundwork of her players rolling to find out about the king of the Cyclops, and then later encountering, so you get those drops of storytelling along the way. And yeah, to Mike's point, I love that it is a character, you know, it is an NPC, like a human or whatever sort of NPC. The monster has a perspective and a point of view, just like any player character, and wants to accomplish tasks. So, you know, making them also have goals and dreams and aspirations as a hideous monster makes the story more compelling.
But you've hit upon something fantastic there is, and we really want to get to the guts of some tips on how to describe the monsters. But you've talked about with the beginning and the hints, describing the monster before it's there. So what kind of things are you doing to foreshadow the monster, Becca,
Oh gosh.
before it's there?
Well, I'm no expert like Amanda is, but I mean, I like to just leave a trail of corpses whenever possible, that players can inspect to find out what mysterious way or what appendage of this hideous monster and what type of, you know, gouging of organs occurred, and learn, oh, this is something that rips off heads, and I should probably make sure I keep mine firmly attached before encountering this thing.
Trail of Corpses, classic. Mike,
The-
other cool ways to foreshadow. What's coming up?
Okay, so you built in a scenario. You're building up the monster about, and the player characters find some sort of, you know, tunnel or lair, and then they find that the monster they think they're hunting, they find it dead, killed by something worse. Because at that point, the players suddenly realize, oh, we thought that was really bad. Whatever killed that must be, you know, and the penny drops, and suddenly they are really focused on what you're telling them.
That is, I'm stealing that tomorrow night. That's amazing.
Oh, I love that. Well, that goes to subverting expectations, or like pulling the rug out from exactly what they expected, which is always so much fun to watch the reactions of.
Yep. And the unknown there becomes so much more powerful, right? Where they have gotten like a gazetteer of where they think the monster lives, and, you know, all of its ecological details, and like, this is the thing that we have to take down. And then they're like, oh my God, but there's something that's worse that could be literally anything, and who knows where it is and what it does. I think that's great advice, Mike. I really love that.
So let's bring out some monsters. We've had some hints. Trail of corpses. We found the monster we thought we were hunting dead. Things are getting even worse. So we haven't said good morning, good afternoon, whatever time it is, wherever in the world to chat. Hello, chat. Yay, are you chatting? Quick, chat. What's your favorite movie monster? Chat crazy. Because now we're going to give you a guessing game, chat. And the guessing game is also going to be played here live on stage, whatever this is, as each of our expert game masters is going to describe a monster. And you in chat can be first to say, it's this, because you're a complete nerd, but we love you for that. But they're going to try to flummox you with the power of description. So I think let's Becca, let's put you in the chair first.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Okay. Well, let me make you all my players for a moment, as you hear a rhythmic tick, 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 scuttling on the cold marble floor behind you, and you turn, and what makes your body start to shake uncontrollably, and your brain tells your legs to run, but they can't, is a creature. Stands before you 8 feet tall. It has a globular torso balanced on 6 sharp crab-like talons, moving in concert like a spider might. in place of its hind legs, it has a snail-like flap that drags behind it with the slurping suction. And it stares down at you with its triangle of 3 bulbous eyeballs bulging in your direction. As the gills that run down the sides of its spherical body ripple and intakes air, you realize what you thought were tiny feelers all over its body, encompassing its bulk, are in fact alert tentacles, each with a hungry-looking mouth on their tips, searching for flesh. And as it pounces, you feel 1,000 tiny piercings everywhere at once before it all goes black. As players, you didn't have much opportunity to run there. I'm so sorry.
Should have rolled better. Wow.
Now, Mike, if you don't know your own monsters, I'll be very disappointed.
All right, we're gonna put him on mute for a second and put Amanda in the chair. What monster was that? Do you know?
Oh, so I am just like Becca, going to put chat and everybody watching in the seat of the players.
No, I was not clear. Do you know what monster? Can you identify the monster that Becca
Oh,
just
can
laid
I
down in
identify the monster? Oh, well, I know I'm pretty sure it's a mythos monster. Oh gosh. The actual name of it is not coming to me. So well done with that description, Becca.
That is fantastic. That's reaching deep
cut.
into the monstrous Monstrorum to pull out something to surprise. Mike, all right, you lost your job if you don't know what this is. You're just going to be.
Well, no, don't set me up like that. Right. I mean, it brought to mind. It brought to mind a mythos deity rather than a monster. I kept thinking of Galaki all the time. That kind of slug kind of form and the kind of covered in kind of tentacles and the kind of, that's what stuck in my head. And of course, once it comes in your head, you can't stop thinking about it. And I know it's not quite right, but I don't know.
That's fantastic. All right.
If I stumped you, I feel very proud.
And I love that. That is exactly what we're talking about. Keeping the monsters fresh, the power of description. You have fooled the author of Monsters Bellorum. Now, what was it?
It's, Cthulian pronunciation. Bear with me on that. Ron Tagath.
Oh, crikey.
Yeah. 3 big eyeballs, big brown guy with just crab legs.
In my
I call him a
defense,
spider crab.
All right. Oh, Mike is literally frozen in horror. So we'll wait for the dark gods of the internet to bring him back from the lines and veils to which he is plunged. There you are.
Am I back?
Yes, you are.
I was saying, in my defense, I've just spent like over a year writing monster descriptions for over 250 monsters and gods and that, and unfortunately they do blur in my mind a little bit.
Yeah,
That's
I
fair.
hear that.
Blarky, and you're talking about Rantagoth. It's yeah, I can see. Yeah, no, it was a great description, Becca.
And there it is,
There it is.
Monstrous Monstrorum. Yeah, an evil tome being printed now, presuming the printers survive. Love it. I love description and arresting. So let's go, Mike. Let's bring in you to describe a monster, and for people on chat to see if they can tumble to it.
Okay, it's a dark and stormy night, and you've entered into this dark building. And you are searching around, for some sort of clues or evidence. And you've entered the main kind of room on this floor. And you notice, the first thing you kind of notice is that the air in this room seems to suddenly grow very heavy, almost pressurized. You feel almost weighted down on the spot. And this shift is accompanied by the sudden taste of chlorine on your tongue. All your senses begin screaming that something is not right in here. Suddenly there's another shift in air pressure, and the darkness seems to spiral in front of your eyes, almost like a trick of your light, confusing your senses. Something large seems to be coming through the wall. It's a kind of a new and heady smell assaults you, but there's something about it that reminds you of the reptile house at the zoo, kind of a musty and earthy smell. Your eyes try to make sense of the movement. You spy these long talons reaching forth on these bulbous and segmented arms. You see growths of hair sprouting from thick plate-like skin, like some immense beetle, yet unlike any beetle ever seen on this earth. As this thing seems to coalesce in the darkness, a terrible dread begins to build in your heart as you see finally its misshapen mouth, more like a yawning maw that begins to open and yet is silent.
All right, our panelists, what was that? What was the last thing you saw?
I can jump in first. Okay, so
Yeah,
the
go for it.
chlorine seems to be a good giveaway. Long talons. I was thinking because it sort of materialized through the wall, maybe I don't know how you pronounce the double L, but a ligor, because that can sort of like be corporeal or not corporeal. But then you said chlorine and this musty, watery, moldy thing. So that makes me think like a deep old one or like Dagon.
Or
All
like
right.
Dagon.
All the above, they're all terrible. What do you got, Amanda?
Oh my gosh, so I keep fixating on the beetle description. I'm thinking of like the beetle-like peoples that are, I think, in the mythos, and I was trying to catch size in that description, and I think maybe it's something bigger than that. So I'm not 100% sure.
All right, so chat will know if they tumbled to it, and you can thank, I like game 666, love your work. But
I
Mike,
said you
what
got
was
it.
it?
Really good job, you.
Okay, so the big clue was the beetle and the segmentedness and the hair.
Suspense.
Oh my goodness. He's tapped out.
Such dramatic moments to freeze.
I tried to avoid using the words dimension and Shambhala because they're a bit of a giveaway.
Okay, that would have.
Oh,
totally
I
taken
saw
away.
that right before this
All right.
stream, and I couldn't remember. I was like, and then there was that one. Well, whatever. Dimensional Shambler.
So what I love about this is that you've both chosen monsters and described them in such unique and refreshing ways that you literally have fooled the experts. You've fooled us all, except for I like game 666 in chat. That person is on fire. So the other thing I loved about the techniques, and I'll delve into a bit more, is it's that real. I mean, Lovecraft himself would pile on the adjectives, and you almost wanted to transfix us in horror to have that sensation like, I'm not going to stop this description. I'm going to keep telling you worse and worse things as your tension is rising and rising until you can go, we run, which is just fantastic work. So Amanda, you get to cheat. You're not going to tell us a monster we can guess. You're going to cheat.
Oh,
Tell us how you're going to cheat.
Play by the rules. That's a secret to GMing sometimes.
All right.
Okay, so you're all players and you're walking down a
Oh
mountain.
no, I just want to put a little refresh. This is a monster that has not yet been seen.
It's true. Okay,
yeah.
well, preamble, yes. So this is a monster that is forthcoming in a Kobold Press hardcover called Tome of Peace 2 that will be shipping to backers in just a few weeks, and also will be available through all retail channels in November. And so Tome of Peace 2 is a book full of 400 monsters for 5th edition games. There's lots of Midgard stuff in there, which is the campaign setting that is the home of Kobold Press. But there's also lots of non-setting specific monsters that you can set in there. And that is going to be one that I will be describing.
So because this is a new one, Mike and Becca, rather than try to guess what it is, we just want to hear what you're going to do about it. All right, so okay. What are you going to do? And there you go, chat. Chat, you can just do your chat thing. Chat on, chat bros, and chat other people. All right, Amanda, you have the floor.
All right, so you are our players, and you are making your way down a mountainous trail through a slender valley. You are coming across little signs that there may have been another group of adventurers, perhaps, or just merchants, travelers that have preempted your journey down this trail. And you are no stranger to danger on this trail. So the first time that you see some scuff marks in the dirt is not terribly surprising. This is not a very safe area. However, you start to become more and more alarmed as you notice that there are what look like perhaps limbs that have been torn off of some sort of humanoid individual, some people perhaps. And as you are walking further and further down this trail, you notice that first off in the distance, there's a crag, a tall crag, probably about 12 feet tall. That is jutting out of the side of this mountain, this valley that you're traveling down. And even more disturbingly, right in front of you, there is indeed a scene. What you thought were severed limbs are actually the remains of several bodies that have been torn limb from limb, gashed everywhere with blood just sprayed on the ground in various patterns that indicate a violent struggle. There are teeth marks and claw marks taken out of the flesh where it looks like they've been attacked by something vicious. And you stop dead in your tracks as you notice that crag off in the distance. There's a head that's peering out from behind it. And it is a disgustingly bloated, pale, bald-headed, huge jaws with a maw of gaping teeth that opens, and it's humanoid and it looks at you, and you can tell that you've attracted its attention as it's slowly rising up from behind the crag. You see just as bloated as the head and the neck and the shoulders, two thick arms rippling with muscle and nasty blood dripping off of its claws. And it hunches itself up and starts to rise up. And the most horrifying thing is that where you would expect to see a belly and a lower body, you simply see another segment. You see a bulbous segment with shoulders and arms, and then another, and then another, and then another. And there are a dozen of these torsos all fused together with 24 arms and a dozen heads with its disgusting teeth as it roars all at once in a cacophony of hatred and pain and starts to lunge over towards you, 12 feet tall as it stands up at its tallest. What are you going to do?
Mike, shall we run screaming in opposite directions?
Run.
Okay.
The thing with its inhuman voice is bent on making you just as destroyed and torn up as that party that it attacked right before you.
No, thank you.
Very good.
That was incredible. Oh, what a terrifying monster you've created.
Yeah, so, discussing that monster. So that is, as you might have maybe recognized, I'm going to actually let folks guess at, there's a component creature that this is made up of, and then the fact that it's all kind of put together gives it its name, but its component creature is part of its name. So can you guess what that humanoid-looking creature that I described possibly was?
Oh.
It's a fairly common Dungeons and Dragons monster, so anything that you throw out might be correct.
Just a bunch of trolls stacked on top of each other. Or a human centipede.
You are very close, Becca. It's not a troll, but it is, you are very close. It is another giant-like humanoid.
And it's a bunch of orcs.
Oh, you're so close. You are, again, so close. You've got the beginning right. You said, oh.
Ogre. Mike, help me out.
It's
ogre.
Ogre. And Becca mentioned human centipede. It is, in fact, an ogrepede.
Okay.
We got it.
Yes.
Yay! It is horrifying. It's art that we threw out there very early on, and everybody just went, oh my god, nope.
Oh God, I'm Googling.
Yeah, it's on the Kobold Press Twitter. Yeah. It's a massive, huge size, I believe, undead ogre pea. A
That's
wizard
horrifying.
did it, we think. Oh, is Mark
Oh,
muted?
Mark,
Thank you. My dog was barking. I too was struck with horror. Thank you. You're on mute. They are monsters that can mute you. I'm going to break down some of the techniques that you guys were laying out. So we had a whole bunch of things going on. The notion of loss of control within our own bodies as our physical bodies reacted against this notion of sensation, losing power in your legs. We talked about a lot about the physicality of the monster, its size, the way it occupies space, what it's going to do with you. A lot of talons, a lot of claws, a lot of teeth, a lot of muscles, a lot of power. Lovely sensations of taste, chlorine, the smell, the kind of the other pressure, this sense of air pressure, the different kind of threat. A lot of descriptions of things we recognize, like crabs and spiders and beetles, but in a total way that we don't, we cannot relate to. So this is a real grab bag of techniques. And I love the emphasis on sound, taste, smell, to really make you feel like the thing is there. So those are wonderful examples and very specific. What are some other tips that you can just throw in at random, just some other things that didn't pop up in the monster you had, just some quick ways to really give your monsters you like to throw in the description to get people going?
I meant to do this with mine and then got distracted, but you mentioned all the senses. Whenever you're in doubt, just list all 5 and go from there.
Absolutely. We all naturally kind of start with what it looks like. And actually, often it's we hear it or we sense it or we smell before we see, before we get that close to seeing it. So
And I'd also like seeing the corpses as well. Sorry, Mike.
Yeah. Precursor.
Why?
All right, Mike, every time you lay down some mythos wisdom, the gods of the internet are hating on you. So Amanda, pick it up while Mike comes back from the space between the gulfs of space.
Yeah, all right. So, I really think that, focusing on trying to put yourself in the headspace of what would a person notice the most about this monster. If there was an actual person and this was an actual thing, what is it that would really sort of jump to your mind? And in some ways it's kind of like writing fiction a little bit and sort of describing what those initial visceral reactions are. That will really, I think, put the characters in there. So it is stuff like, one of the most prominent visual features, or a smell that really hits you, very viscerally, or like a noise that you can hear that it's making that's it is really like assaulting to your ears physically, or is just really kind of strange. It really jumps up. Picking out those things that are strange and different and unique and are really arresting from a sensual perspective is I think key, and like a thing that I try to do, and it makes players, like Becca was kind of reacting before, just be like, oh my gosh, what is even happening, rather than like, I guess it's another ogre and we're just gonna kill it.
Yeah, spot on. That's just me lazy on a Wednesday night, but you do want that sense that it's not just a bag of hit points. So in Call of Cthulhu, people are probably running, or they're dealing with it another way. Maybe they're firing shotguns. Pathfinder or D&D, they're starting to fight. Now that the monster is just a sack of hit points, and really it's the equivalent of a walking Excel spreadsheet, how are you keeping that threat going, that description going, as the scene proceeds?
That's a good question. So I guess I'll just jump in. So I really am a fan of very in a very detail-oriented way, describing, telling rather than showing what's happening, what the monster's doing. And for me, that's pulling out stuff like, what is its attack actually doing? You know, in like a Pathfinder or Starfinder or D&D, there's often just like, well, the monster has a slam attack or the monster has a bite attack. Like, I don't just roll to hit and say the monster's biting at you. Like, I'll describe it in a narrative way, and it doesn't even need, you don't even need to use that many more words. It's really just the action oriented, right? Rather than just saying, does a 21 hit your AC? You want to say, well, the monster opens its jaw wider than you ever possibly think that it could, and it reaches its mouth over your head and it starts to chomp down. Let's see if you're able to jump out of the way before it crashes down onto your skull, and then you roll. And, you know, whether it hits or it doesn't, then that really kind of builds the story for how the fight is happening and what the monster is able to do. Because I think it's much more interesting to build a story and the combat rather than just, you know, roll to hit, oh, you miss, oh, I hit, oh, I miss. Like, that just gets really boring to me and I'm not as interested. So describing what it's doing and how it's hitting and the way it's crunching through bone or the way it gashes open your shoulder or the way it tears into your armor. I mean, just thinking about what's actually happening rather than just the numbers on the page and how the die is rolling, I think is much more compelling.
Yeah, my answer is similar. So I just want to jump on the back of that is never let the monster do anything the exact same way twice. Of course, they have the same attack, but yes, and because I come from improv, yes, and whatever your player just did. So if the player did something that left them in a vulnerable position, well, great. Now it's like a dance and you're in this movement. So really picture it for yourself. And sometimes when you're not sure exactly what that is, just close your eyes for a second, take a deep breath for a second, and then, oh, I know a different way that they could run and then dive at you and then bite at your ankles and swipe and try and knock you off your feet instead of just claw, you know?
Yep.
Mike, what about when the monster runs out of hit points?
Well, I mean, a lot of Call of Cthulhu monsters can't die. They may occasionally run out of hit points, but they can reform sometimes, or they just, you know, magic themselves away before they actually die. In the Malleus Monstrorum, you know, all the monsters have, they're very descriptive, and not all of them are attacks. Some of them are, you know, how they affect the environment, or how they affect the characters, you know, just by their presence being there. And I think, as you know, as Becca and Amanda have said, it's that kind of, you know, using the monsters as drama, you know, describing, you know, what they do, be fresh about it, be you know, use them to drive the drama of the situation, because most players will engage with that drama and hopefully kind of, you know, engage and do risky things, and, you know, which sometimes will land them in a worse situation or give the monster an advantage, or the players get an advantage or whatever. And, you know, really kind of, you know, dramatize and make it feel like it's, you know, it's all or nothing on this, you know, if they, you know, if sometimes with Cthulhu monsters, it's not about attacking the monster, it's trying to stun the monster or keep the monster away long enough to survive the encounter. And so, you know, presenting that in a variety of ways is, you know, makes it compelling and engaging.
I absolutely love that, and I feel like we've come back to where we started. And it's how do we keep our descriptions fresh? I don't think we need to, believe it or not. I reject the whole concept of this panel. We need to keep us fresh. We need to keep us as storytellers fresh and know that it's about drama. And if it's always compelling and it's not so, and we're always in that moment with that threat and danger and every step of the way, and this wonderful notions of after the fact, that if we bring that energy, then people will always be transfixed, even if it's the 99th kobold of the week. Sensational. I want to just run off and run a game, but it's 9 o'clock in the morning in Australia, and that's a bit extra. So I guess I better not. But you have inspired me, and I really hope you've inspired all the people at PAX Online. Let us say farewell. Please thank them in chat. I don't know, hand claps, whatever, how we do this. Type, yes, good job, good game. Let me see. Let's just finish off with where people can. I think we've covered. Where can we find some of your monstrous work to follow up? Everybody, let us farewell, everyone. So Amanda.
Sure. Yeah, I'm happy to start. So, of course, I've been working on Tomo Beast 2, which we shipped to the printer and will be available later in the fall, like I mentioned. But as far as like a hefty chunk of my actual design work, they are through all of the Alien archives that Paizo has published for the Starfinder RPG. I've got a bunch of monsters in Alien Archive 1, 2, and 3. Many of them are weird, creepy, gross things, but a lot of them are building up the mythos of a planet in the setting that is my brainchild and my baby, called Daimalco. That's all about kaiju and giant, horrifying, eyeless, skinless, tentacle wormed-faced monsters. So,
Amanda, you're killing me. You've just kicked off so many more panels, because here's Mike, who designed Dark Heresy 40K. We could have had 40K versus Starfinder.
Oh yeah, we could have. Oh man, yeah.
All right, so Alien Archives, Tomo Beast. Mike, your monstrous activity?
Yeah, I mean, well, if you want to know about monsters in Call of Cthulhu, then please take a look at the Malleus Monstrorum, which is a 2-volume set. Volume 1 details hundreds of monsters from the Cthulhu Mythos, and Volume 2 details all the gods and alien beings and from the mythos, and there's chapters on how to describe them in your game, how to use them in your game, and to create them. So it's all instilled there, as well as, numerous kind of Call of Cthulhu books that, I've worked on over the last few years or so. So yeah, check them out at chaosium.com and look us up on Facebook and Twitter, and I'll see you there, I guess.
All right, and Becca, where can we see some more of your horrible stylings of monstrous description?
Oh man, such an honor that you would call it that. Mark, thank you. Please find me on Twitter and Instagram at the Becca Scott, and then my YouTube channel, youtube.com/goodtimesociety, where I like to torture my friends. And I hope to be playing Amanda and Mike's incredible work and showing that up. More stuff like that will be on the channel soon, so stay tuned.
All right, game on. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a fantastic and non-monstrous day, and we will see you at the game table. Farewell. Hurrah. Yay.